This is another Silicon Bites, and it is a dark one, of course. It relates to Trump, and unfortunately, many of his utterances are, if they are analysed deeply, are extremely dark and disturbing. Before we get into this episode, please do check out the links in the description of the video. There you will find descriptions of the campaigns we're running to get 4x4 trucks over to Ukraine. There's a garage in Lviv and one in Kiev, which turns them into battle-ready vehicles to help Ukrainian defenders remain resilient and resist Russian aggression. Now let's get into this episode, and I want to make it clear we're not making a specific allegation against Trump, even though there were hints in Elon Musk's posts. No, we're saying that the tone of his argument, in fact, the very argument he used, is a very common defense used by rapists. Trump was asked a simple question, one which any man with empathy, leadership qualities, or any human dignity would find relatively simple to answer. His instinct was to reach for a classic rapist's response or defense. Ukraine was asking for it, he basically said. Trump was asked, do Ukraine's strikes against Russian airfields change your view of the cards Zelenskyy has? Donald Trump responded, they gave Putin a reason to bomb the hell out of them last night. That's something I didn't like about it. When I saw it, I said, here we go. Now it's going to be a strike. Let's be clear. Ukraine defended themselves, but Trump says that they're asking for it. This follows on from the crass, tone-deaf, ludicrous and disgusting analogy that Trump made yesterday, comparing Putin and Zelenskyy to toddlers scrapping in the nursery. We'll go to that full comment later. These kind of comments are far worse than just demonstrating that Trump is a moral and strategic vacuum. Yes, they show that he is a man without human and political empathy, but we already knew this. It's far, far worse than that. He instinctively sides with the bully, the tyrant, the psychopath. He seems to understand the motivations of the abuser more than the victim. Don't ignore the signals and signs implicit in his language because they are too terrifying to acknowledge. Because to pretend that's not who he is may help you to make the world seem less scary. We have to face the reality. Trump has the mind of an abuser, and his choice of words over and over make this abundantly clear. He sides with strength and might, devoid of any moral code or limitations. Weakness is the only unforgivable sin in his book. Being a victim is deserving of contempt and derision, not being a triumphant bully. He seems to have unlimited admiration for those people. The attacker and the victim, for Trump, it's all the same. The attacker and the defender, it's all the same. The one who strikes military targets and the one who kills civilians intentionally and indiscriminately, it's all the same. The rapist and his victim, it's all the same. Yes, Ukrainians were provocatively living in peace, striving to improve their country and find adequate security and defense within international structures and legal frameworks. So, of course, Putin's invasion is justified, while many people still seem to be making this perverse case. And once attacked, Ukraine defends itself. So clearly they are asking for it, to have the temerity to face off with a larger foe, to use their innovation and wits to fight back against an opponent that has more human and material resources. Well, in Trump's world, what do they expect if they fight back? Trump surely thinks they should just lie back and let it happen. That seems to be his attitude and the very embodiment of his foreign policy. He has not given Ukraine any additional tools to fight back and likely will not willingly do so. He is even depriving Ukraine of the means to defend itself by blocking their request to purchase air defense systems. And people need to stop calling Russia's attacks retaliation strikes. This isn't retaliation, but a full-scale, unprovoked war Russia's been waging since February 24th, 2022, using every dirty trick ever devised in warfare, every tactic banned by the Geneva Conventions of Warfare. Russia doesn't need a reason to bomb Ukraine. It does this every day anyway. Call it what it is, a genocidal war of aggression. And here is another despicable example of such dreadful framing that helps to normalize Russia's aggression and stigmatize the country seeking to defend itself. The headline in the Washington Post reads, Ukraine's dirty war is just getting started. I'm sorry, what dirty war is this? The one where Russia uses strategic nuclear bombers to murder civilians daily, many, many thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands since the start of the war, and Ukraine seeks to neutralize these instruments of death in a surgical strike that seems to have caused no civilian or military casualties, but has resulted in the elimination of one-third of this military capacity, this fleet of aerial death. Well, the headline is perverse in the extreme, distorting, appeasing, and utterly immoral. Fixed it for you, writes Jessica Berlin on X. David Ignatius, the article's author, should be livid that this grotesque headline was appended to his article by the headline writers, or if he approved of it, he should be deeply, deeply ashamed. Operation Spiderweb gave Putin a reason to bomb the hell out of them, Trump says, following large-scale attacks on Ukrainian cities. Trump, on June 6th, appeared to justify Russia's large-scale attack on Ukrainian cities launched the night before. Again, he implied this is retaliation and not what it really is, psychopathic revenge from the killer in the Kremlin. They gave Russian President Vladimir Putin a reason to go in and bomb the hell out of them last night, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One. Russia launched a massive missile and drone attack against Ukraine overnight on June 6th, targeting the capital, major cities, and the country's far western regions, which are usually spared the daily bombardment. So far, it's thought that 80 people were injured and 4 people killed, including first responders. Trump warned on June 5th, or rather predicted, that Russia's response to Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb is likely not going to be pretty, without seemingly lifting a finger to try and stop it. Instead, he made claims to have made a few pathetic entreaties to Putin, an approach that has never worked in the past, and which he must know would not work now. I don't like it. I said, don't do it. You shouldn't do it. You should stop it, Trump added feebly. Trump sidestepped questions about when he would impose additional sanctions on Russia. It's thought these are being delayed because of direct pressure from Trump and may even be watered down again at his behest. The Kremlin continues to reject a ceasefire, but no pressure is being applied to Putin to force a change in the Kremlin's thinking or their actions. When asked by reporters in the Oval Office as to whether a deadline exists for the implementation of sanctions, Trump replied, yes, it's in my brain, the deadline, without, of course, specifying a date or any details. It is utterly pathetic. He gives a good impression of being Putin's creature through and through. Previously, Trump said he had not yet imposed new sanctions on Russia because he believed a peace deal might be within reach, despite there being absolutely no evidence for this whatsoever. If I think I'm going to close a deal, I don't want to screw it up by doing that, he said. It's worse, though. Trump is clearly shielding Russia from harsh responses, helping to string out the fictitious peace process, allowing Putin the space to conquer more territory and gain what Putin sees as an advantage in his ongoing assault on Ukraine. What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would already have happened to Russia. And I mean really bad. He's playing with fire, he wrote on Truth Social on May 27th. This grotesque and appeasing statement by Trump followed 3 days of intense attacks on various regions of Ukraine, and he uttered no real condemnation of that, though. A bipartisan sanctions bill is awaiting approval in Congress. It has provisions for sweeping financial penalties and tariffs on nations buying Russian oil or uranium. Will Trump ever allow it to pass? Possibly not. But while this delay in process continues, and the US refuses to sell to Ukraine additional air defense units and munitions, the tally of victims in Ukraine mounts day by day. This, in my view, makes Trump directly culpable in helping to enable this large-scale mass murder. The overnight drone missile and guided bomb attacks killed at least 3 people and injured 19 in Kharkiv on the night of the 6th to the 7th of June. Russian forces attacked Kharkiv with drones, missiles, and KAB guided bombs. Regional Governor Oleg Sinyukhov said that the drones had struck civilian targets across the city, including a 9-story residential building, local enterprise, a home, and other facilities. Victims are said to be stuck underneath the rubble. 2 children were injured in the attack, including a 1-month-old baby. At least 40 explosions recorded across the city. In total, 80 people are said to have been injured and 7 people killed across Ukraine, and that includes first responders, President Zelenskyy said. And of course, we know that Russia does double tap strikes specifically to try and take out those who are helping and those who are first responders. This was a cynical Russian strike on ordinary cities. More than 400 drones, more than 40 missiles. We need to put pressure on Russia to accept a ceasefire and to stop the strikes, said Zelensky. Ukraine's Air Force reported that Russia launched 452 drones overnight, including Iranian-designed Shahed-type suicide drones, along with 45 missiles of various types. Russia doesn't change its stripes. Another massive strike on cities and ordinary life. They targeted almost all of Ukraine. Volyn, Lviv, Ternopil, Kiev, Sumy, Poltava, Khmelnytsky, Cherkasy, and Cherniv regions, Zelensky said the morning after the attacks. Russia must be held accountable for this. Since the first minute of the war, they've been striking cities and villages to destroy life. 3 people were killed overnight. Mayor Vitaly Klitschko reported. Ukraine's state emergency service later confirmed that the victims were rescue workers responding to the attack. Another 23 people in Kiev were injured, including 14 emergency responders. A child was among the injured. The attack damaged tracks and cables on the metro line between the Darnitsia and Levoberezhsk stations, causing closures and route disruptions. Casualties were also reported in Lutsk in northwestern Ukraine amid the mass strike. At least 2 people were killed and 27 more injured in that area, according to state emergency services. Moscow, however, needs no excuses to bombard Ukrainian cities with drones and missiles, as the mass strikes Russia launched against Ukrainian cities in the days before Spiderweb operation prove. For 3 consecutive nights in the last week of May, Russia targeted Ukraine with some of the heaviest aerial attacks since the start of the full-scale war. That is not labelled as retaliation, and yet they attacked anyway. Russia continues to reject calls for a ceasefire, and Putin said he is no longer interested in negotiating with Ukraine. 6 people are likely trapped under the rubble of an industrial facility in Kharkiv that was hit by a Russian attack earlier in the day, the Kharkiv Oblast Prosecutor's Office reported on June 7th. Zelensky rejected US President Donald Trump's comparison of Russia's war against Ukraine to children fighting in a park during his interview with ABC News published on June 6th. We are not kids with Vladimir Putin at the playground in the park, Zelensky said. Putin is a murderer who came to this park to kill the kids. Trump said on June 5th that it might be best for the US not to intervene in Russia's war against Ukraine for now. He said, "Sometimes you see 2 young children fighting like crazy," Trump said at a meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at the White House. "They hate each other and they're fighting in a park, and you try to pull them apart. They don't want to be pulled. Sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart. I will let everyone watching this come to their own conclusions about the tone and moral bankruptcy of this example that Trump thought was clever. Of course, it's not. It's disgusting. A better example would be to see Trump's statement as relating to a rapist and his victims, saying it's best not to intervene as the attacker seems capable of extreme irrational violence and might hurt the victim even more. Trump equates the defender's desperate attempts not to be beaten, raped, or killed with the attacker. This is not just a bad framing by Trump, not just a bad analogy. It is the rapist's defense. He has empathy for the abuser, not the victim. He defends the motives of the killer, not the one resisting being killed. Trump has the mind and attitude of an abuser and has shown this quality repeatedly. Both siding the aggression is despicable and extremely unhelpful. Moscow has shown no practical interest in peace, whereas Kiev has repeatedly urged Russia to accept a Western-backed 30-day ceasefire as the first step towards a broader peace deal, a move that Moscow again rejected during the latest round of negotiations in Istanbul on June 2nd. In an interview with ABC News, Zelensky spoke of the limitless pain endured by a Ukrainian father who lost his wife and three children in a missile strike. Zelensky added that Trump could not feel fully and understand this pain. And it's not about President Trump. It's about any person who is not here in the country, who is some thousands of miles away. They cannot fully feel and understand this pain, Zelensky said. He's not wrong. I dare anyone to say that Zelensky should not express this truth, especially on American media. I dare them to say that it's bad optics to present Trump with the horrifying implications of his words and actions. I dare anyone to make the case that Trump must be appeased yet again for his appalling statement and lack of action to support the victim and enable the abuser. To do so, you are demanding Zelensky chooses dishonor instead of war, when this is no longer the choice on the table. Zelensky has had war thrust upon him, and he chooses to fight, and he chooses to retain his and his people's honor in the face of abuse and lies. It's timely to remind other Western leaders of Churchill's quote, because this choice is now upon them. Trump has chosen dishonor. What will the others do? You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor, and you will have war. Winston Churchill.